All right, let's get started. Welcome everybody on a happy Wednesday. Just housekeeping real quick. I'm going to be heading to a reception at the Money Show tonight in a couple hours, and then I'm not sure I'll be on at all tomorrow, given the Money Show schedule, and I'm teaching a class there. So it's not till the afternoon, but I need to head there and prepare and all that. So you won't see much of me, but I'll be on the weekend, particularly, and I'll even try to call things from my phone if it makes sense. But I need to kind of take a break. So, okay, so let's go over Bitcoin real quick. I believe, as I've been saying, we had a really strong, nice five-wave move down last night. I'd expected higher. I count this as WXY. We're really missing a clean, a sizable four in this, and so I count this as an ABC within within the Y wave off the X wave bottom. We get those a lot in Bitcoin. They come as a surprise. I'm not usually ready because I would expect it a 4 or 5 on the end of this, but I should be ready by now because I've seen this enough times. And then obviously the price action off that push down is very weak. That gives us a very nice short setup. I have this ending diagonal that I posted later. I think that's kind of dropped out, so not likely our case. We're seeing some sort of B wave form here, and then we should see a C wave higher. If this turns impulsive, then I'll start viewing this as down. But if you have gathered the way I trade, I've already scaled in. I called a short trade on the website, and so that's the beginning of my scale. And then I'll just look for opportunities to scale higher. In the end of the day, when I get this kind of setup, if I don't get the short position I want, I'll kind of top it off like a gas tank when we break the lows on the one. I don't mind being a breakout trader at times, and the shorts move fast enough for me to then get a stop just above it. So I will place. I haven't done it yet, but I'll place stop loss orders below this one as we start to get close to that. So, but my focus right now is to try to get a higher level short position in. When we look at techs, let's see. I really, really, the techs gave me an early warning yesterday when we started to push against this trend line. I think if you guys know me long enough, I love trend lines, not on price as much as I like them on indicators. They can really pinpoint shifts in the wave count. So we pushed below that. It didn't stay below it, but now we've got a very weak price action, and we'll start to see this roll below that trend line now in the next few hours, unless suddenly we get a strong bid in this market and it really invalidates the setup. For me to even really see this setup invalidating, I need a move over the seven. Well, it should be 764, but 786 is a good proxy at 767.50. Follow through to 6,800, and unless above that, I'll just be layering in short positions, and I won't be too large here because short positions are always careful, especially with the short interest we have in the market. You've got to be careful and maybe even a little bit nuts when we're this low in a move, but I'm not playing it too heavy myself, just enough to get some nice money in my account to buy lower on the long side. So it's really my focus at this point in time. That's not much I'll say of that. I mean, we're still in between the red count and the white count, which means we really should see this not get farther than 5,200, 5,100, 4,900, unless we're in the waterfall setup, which, again, Bitcoin really likes WXYs. So I have no problem looking for WXYs in Bitcoin. We saw it even in this little correction up here, a WXY, and we potentially might see WXY for all of four. And if that's in play, we get this move down to 3,400. It doesn't really play well with the rest of the market, so I have some doubt on it. But if we start to see corrective action after the 49, I'm going to be out of shorts in this zone, this 49 to 51 zone, 52 zone. But if we start to see corrective action in this area instead of a very strong bid, then I will be very much leaning towards a drop into the lower setup. In this WXY, you really ideally see a hit of the 61.8, so that's 55, a bounce up into the 60, 620, that's the 3,800, or sorry, 38.2. And then you usually see a drop through to 44. So a drop through to 4,400, which is the 123.6, and that's strong indication of this in play. So I'll be watching it in the micro If I see us have a high retrace up at the 55.3 up into 60, that's my first warning. Second warning is a push through the 4900 area strong. So it's actually pretty clear when you start to learn pinball what's playing out. But this is right now is just a setup that I'm watching. Let's go to Ether real quick. I see this two ways. I see this. I really struggle with this leading diagonal to a degree, but it's valid, and so it needs to be at least considered, especially when we've got an A wave, probably a B wave bottom here, or a little bit extension, and then a C wave up. It's very much possible that this diagonal is in play. The problem with it is this 4 is very high, so it's kind of expanding diagonal. Expanding diagonals are actually rarer than you think, and so I'm doubtful. It's only subtly expanded, or it could be called overthrow in a standard diagonal, but it's just a little high. But if that's playing out, then we're going to get a nice move down, and then right now it's projecting into 193 exactly. We could see extensions lower into the long-term support at 122 potentially. It'll depend on what we'll see extended third if that's the case. But at the same time, if we're starting with a diagonal, we're starting to get tired. There's a kind of action we start to see near bottoms potentially, at least in some forms. And we just want to make sure we get a really strong bid out of at least above the long-term support area, that we have bigger questions. So that's what I'm watching in Ether. Ether, Bitcoin, Ether BTC is again in the long-term support area. Well, it's less long-term as much as just a really key area for the 1-2-1-2 setup on the daily count, with a strong move expected. I don't, it's funny, like when you look at, I know that Ether just moves with more beta than Bitcoin, but with Ether potentially putting a long-term top, and then you see this setup in the count, I really can't reconcile. It may be that we're really playing in a larger diagonal, and this is a C wave. It's a bit lower, so that's going to be interesting to watch out for, because I don't see Ether getting beyond 6,900 unless it has an extended 5 to 16,500, and that should be a very long-term top. So this is going to be interesting to watch, and I mean it's playing the fibs over the last 2 years just on the money. So I wouldn't expect this necessarily actually to play out. However, we have a valid 1-2-1-2 setup, and it's right there in the support zone. Potentially a 4 in place, and so if we see a strong move in Ether out of its long-term support, then this should hold. So something to watch. And then again, I wanted to point out that PIVX and Walton Chain are two to watch for potential long-term holds. Actually, before I do that, any questions on Ether, Bitcoin? I'm certainly happy to take those before we move on. Again, we're coming close to the end of a move for sure. The question is, what is it that we ultimately get out of this move when it does bottom? Is it going to be a long-term bottom, or is it going to be something more anemic? A large B wave is possible, and even still holding long-term support over time. There's a lot possible out of this area, but some coins really are begging for a long-term bottom more strongly. So, or especially Ether. So we'll have to see what happens. Any questions with those? I'm happy to take them, and then I'll move on to my two potential bottom picks, which I mentioned on the board, and I'll discuss. I don't see any, so feel free to, I'll catch them later. Any questions later? That's no problem if you think of them as we go. Okay, so two bottom potentials, and both of these are ones we've traded. I think WTC still in the long-term portfolio. PIVX we closed a long time ago, really near the top. But now they may potentially be bottoming. Walton Chain, and I caught this. I have a lot of gaps in my micro chart because of the API throttling, but so I reviewed this with TradingView and really have no issues with what I see in price action. We had a 4. I don't really see a defined 4 in TradingView that would be in this area on this chart, inside this gap. But I've got this pin to the bottom, and then I've got my fibs off of it, and we're hitting the fibs really nicely. So 5 up to this 293 area, a 2 down, that's a potentially running flat because the 2 is higher. And then we came up to the 618, or just about 2, which is a perfect spot for a 1. And then we've already, it assumes that 3 waves has happened within this very straight move. It's possible. It's also possible that we have a B wave when we come back down in the circle 2. Either is both bullish. It's just right now, technicals and setup, and even this wave 1 potential off here suggests at least the chance it starts to run away. And so, if you want to play this, you really want to buy now. I hate saying that. I really don't like trading a breakout. So it might be smarter just simply. I also don't like inviting subscribers, even though I'm not really inviting to chase breakouts. It's just a bad practice. But if you want to, you can play it between this region with a target of 583 for the short-term trade. I'm going to personally wait. Binance is where I would trade this, and I've got some coin there that's not doing much, so I may try to get some short-term profit out of this. But I think it would be better personally to wait for 603 to be hit. Then you have a really strong chance at the bottom that we can map out the retrace. So that's a candidate, and we'll just have to see how it goes if it really plays out. On the daily, the problem with this guy, the problem with this guy is a sort of ugly wave one with extended 5 potentially, and it's potentially this really is an ABC. It really has an ABC look with a C as an ending diagonal. So I'm cautious on this long term personally. So I'm more inclined to call it a short term trade, and then the portfolio, I'll see how it behaves, and I might take it out. But in the meantime, it's reasonable that if it's a long-term third wave, that we see this move up to $20.73. So that's 6x from where we're at now, but almost 7x, and then it'll be a little bit more if you catch it in a retrace, and then we'll get some level of wave two. It's like all of my fibs have not been adjusted to new lows, and then potentially a third wave to 965. If it's a C wave, it may not get any farther than $39 to 389. If this is an A wave up in one, or an ABC up in one, so we'll have to see how that goes. But again, I've been saying on the board, I think if you've caught the conversation, a lot of these 1 of 3s, we want to take profit anyway. Because these corrections will be very deep. I mean, 20 to 5. This will probably go faster than our correction that's here, but it's a 75% hit potentially. So in any of our coins, we at least want to take some profit off of buys at the bottom that we've got, and taking them off at the first wave up, first of this level of degree. So, and believe me, I'll be speaking that loudly when we get there. And then PIVX. Let's look at that. Let's see. I don't know if I'll be able to show a very good micro on the in the same regard. I may pull. Let's see if I can pull TradingView over. So long-term wise, we're actually well above support. I always mark an extended third. I always mark the 3/8 retrace. I do it with the extension tool, so I get it as a 618. But this is our top. But there's a potential here. We have enough waves to call this a bottom. I pulled an A equals C down here, and it's actually more ideal that it tops up here. So it is potential that it bottoms, gets a B wave, and then comes right back down to long-term support while everything's doing 2 down. But in the meantime, it's showing some level of pattern that potentially become a bottom. And let me zoom in. I'll get enough of a look at it. It's better in TradingView, but it's potential that we have an extended fifth. That's the issue with this chart. This can be an ABC, but in technicals and everything, it's showing potential that it's bottom. So I wouldn't necessarily play this one like Walton Coin just kind of going. I wouldn't get too aggressive on this one until we first see 198. And let me map that out. And so this, and the reason I would say that is because it's a potential as an ABC wave 4 with an extended, with a ABC, but it could also be a 5-wave move with an extended 5. I'm cautious on the latter, so that's why I say wait till we get 5 up at a larger degree, and that should be up to 198, something like that. And one of the reasons why, when we get this move, we've got a more clear bullish flag in this action, and so it's potential that plays out. So just something, that one's something to watch. Walton Coin seems to be going, at least so far, and hasn't broken any support yet. So that's where I'm at. Okay. I see a question: is Dash a good candidate for bottom? I'll look at the micro. I don't think it is at all. And the biggest problem I have with Dash is that it's probably most definitely a B wave. Rally coming up next, where some things really don't want a B wave. Dash, because it's actually very shallow in terms of correction, may be a B wave. So I'm actually more looking to get out of Dash than to be in it. in the next top, and then maybe completely out of the portfolio or reduce back down to 5-10%. I'll look at the micro and see if maybe it's showing some pattern in the micro. Let me get through a request and then I'll get to that. Any other questions about, again, before I move on to requests, and I'll get Dash at the end of that, any questions on Bitcoin, Ether, or Walton Chain or Pivx, which are the only candidates I see right now. I saw Verge as a potential bottom, but it hasn't panned out, and it's broken support. So I don't see it. I see it as an ABC now. Any questions on these at this point? All right, so let's talk. I'm gonna get to the list here and start taking requests. Dent was requested last night, so I'll do that first. Let's see. I thought I've got it up before I jump in. No, let me get it up. I posted a view recently, and so there's no real change. We are in the zone where you expect to bottom. I don't see bottom action. I've been putting this red count and tracking it. It's not broken yet, but it's really not very nice. And then we also have the 786 down here below at 0.001. And so my bets are still that we hit that. I don't think we have a strong enough move out of this zone to say a bottom's in. But I'm just for the sake of tracking it, there's potential that there's a leading diagonal. It's overlapping in such a wild way. It might be the top is actually B, but it doesn't look that way to me, that if we've got a leading diagonal, we've got one up, we've got a B in place, and we're coming down in C in 2. That's the way I see it right now. If by chance we really fill out this and get to 0.006, then I can say, well, maybe this wave 1 is in place already. Here doesn't like it because I'm not snapping all these right, but that's possible. But until we see that 0.006, I assume we're going to see 0.004, and there's nothing wrong with seeing 0.004 in a wave 1 up, 2 down, and a large degree. So nothing broken on this, but certainly no reason to call it a bottom either. But I'll keep tracking this red count as we go to see if I'm wrong. And then one thing is, we've got obviously wave 4 peak here that failed. And so we're really not even high probability until we're over that level at 0.07. But by then we've kind of run. So we kind of like to at least scale in lower if possible. At least I do in my own trading. So I'd rather start to see 5 up and then buy into a retrace lower, which would be down in this this box here. I don't have it really well mapped out, but it'd be in the 0.02 region. So that's that. Not anything to be excited about just yet. CRX has been a very strong one from my point of view, and as you know, if you've been following me, I was short-term trading it, but then it failed the pattern. I was trading, but now I'm watching for the potential of a large triangle to be either complete or needs another DE on the end of this. It looks pretty clear right now. Until it breaks this C, it's not invalidated as a triangle, and we're getting a lot of support around the trend line. It's drooped below the trend line, but that doesn't invalidate a triangle until you see an invalidation below the C. And then I'm tracking this as a large diagonal. It's ugly, but I really can't call this anything but a bull flag in the long term. And as long as it's a triangle, you know how much I love trading triangles. They tend to create velocity. So I would want to be in this one in a big way if we break out of this triangle. I cut my position short term, have some long term, but I will be very aggressive on it if we break the triangle. But we're not there yet. And we may get some kind of deeper C wave down into 35. I think the whole market's running out of gas to the downside, but it's always possible. And so, nothing to say really short term. Especially with the market coming down, we'll have to see if that C wave holds. So I don't really have much to add on that beyond that. XLM, no change there. The question is triangle or C wave. I don't know yet. Let's see, where is that guy? There it is. So it's got kind of the slowing pace down here, which could be fourth or B of this wave down. And it may be we get a C wave into the Y wave, or we may get the triangle. And I've got this trend line where I'm following the triangle, and then of course again the C wave, red C wave, is an invalidation point for that triangle. Again, if it's a triangle, be really aggressive on this trade. The target is at least, let's see if I got my fibs right. I don't. Let me find my daily fibs. So we should look at 311 for the top of that 3. So that's a nice trade, long term. We just need to see where it bottoms. But you can see how anemic it's getting to the downside, really going sideways and really behaving like a triangle. So it's potential that we're very imminent on the bottom here. If this is a B wave in the C, then it's much lower, and we'll see a drop past 12 cents. That would be if Bitcoin chooses a waterfall count, potentially, I guess. And so it could even see 0.06 potentially, and that doesn't break the long term. And so that's a little ideal, but it doesn't break it. I'd rather see it hold 0.12. Below that, I start to get a little bit worried. But yeah, I mean, overall, if it continues to hold this sideways action, it's great. REP is a wave 2 down. It's one of our third wave candidates. I don't see any sign of a bottom. We've got corrective action. Look how it's banging its head against resistance area right on the money. I love to see that just because I love pinball and love seeing it go. I don't know what this is yet. It might be maybe we get another run into this in the resistance area. But right now I get confluence on a couple levels for this $11 to $12 region. It's the bottom of this box close to it. And then it's also the projection when you've got this lengthy of a third. It's the extension that I get. So I wouldn't be aggressively buying it. You can always scale in, but I wouldn't be aggressively buying it until it's in that zone, in my point of view. RDD, again, no change there. It's not bottomed. It's done the same thing RP has. And then there's a lot of these I'm going to kind of jam through because I've covered so extensively on the site. I hope you forgive me, but if there's any questions about it, let me know. But I don't see any sign of a bottom. There was a potential that this is a leading diagonal, but until it breaks through 003, it's not bottomed. And then I still see it going down into the long-term box. I mean, look at this fib right here, 0.001, which is the 382. It's upside down with this tool, but it's the 382 of the third wave retrace, and we've got confluence right heading down that way on this count right in that zone. So that's like an arrow shot right to the right spot. So that's where I see it going until we break resistance. Again, love pinball when it starts showing you these things. In terms of if you want to see the long term, still heading up to this area. They called out last webinar, which is 20 cents to 70 cents. So no change there. Verge, was tracking the bottom and it broke down in my point of view. It looks like we're heading down into a lower 5 of C for 4. And this was long-term support, this box down here. I don't have the fibs. So we're well above, long-term support still. It may be that we completely, just take a bath right down into that area, but right now it doesn't project there on the micro. So this is roughly a 0.01. And I had said a long time ago when we broke 043 that we could see this long-term support at 0.05, and it may be that we still see it. I can't project this any of this move down off the B wave top from there. Man, you guys, you guys are around long enough, man. It was amazing that Fibonacci Pinball and Elliott Wave saw us see that top, and then subsequently broke. It really confirmed it after 0.043 broke, and we just avoided all of that. If you listen to me, I took some profit. I took some off. I still have a lot, in the tens of thousands, but got out of a decent amount there, and some of it was actually bought down here. So this ended up being a nice B wave trade, which is so rare. So I love looking back at history and going, wow, the tool sets and the method that we learned really helped us to avoid all this pain. And I still get tweets from people going, what do you think of Verge? What do you think of Verge? And I'm halfway ignoring them because we don't have anything to say until we hit the long-term bottom and start to see a reaction. It's just we get to avoid this pain, at least part of it, if we take profit, if we listen to how the tool works. All right, EMC still same thing last time. We hit the let's see, my fibs in the right spot. So we hit the 1618. I'm a little concerned that we're now below the 1.0. And so we have to look at the 786, which is 0.04. I don't have any bottom actioning. We have a strong move off that 3, but then it kind of sagged out. And so while we could see that be an ugly ending, a leading diagonal, I don't think so. And I won't say so until we're over 12 cents. And so I assume we're going to hit that 786 at 0.04. That's where I'm looking for this one to bottom. Because we have really gone so deeply off the 618. I halfway lean on this being a leading diagonal completing into this level. I like to call it a three-way move, but it's really extended for a three-way move. So if I really subdivide this more carefully, it's potential that I can make this into a leading diagonal that topped in there. So a little bit of forcing going on in that counting, but I'm relying on fibs more than subwave counts, and I usually do that anyway. And so if this is a 2, then this is a strong 3 candidate. And if that's the case, then we'll have a profit taking zone up in this $3 zone up here. So, but we'll map that out more carefully when we get the setup. So I'm between 2 counts, not long term, because we went so low on this one. But no sign of bottom until we're over 12 cents. Let's see, BTS, really no change to any of my viewpoint. Again, I had said previously that I haven't had a chance to look at the wave 4 count. I had a real struggle with it where Gat and Japel really didn't. I can't enumerate my struggle really clearly right now because I'm going through too many charts, but it's possible. It's even possible that this is an invalidated triangle, so it's not. So I still like a bottom in the in this 0.06 area based on micro projections. We do have to be aware that there's a key fib at 0.046, so we certainly could drop. But if that's wave 4, we really don't have the setup to get us there currently. But sometimes I say that and then eat my words. And then regardless whether it's a wave 4 or a or one of the 3 next, we have a profit taking area. Let me just pull this real quick. Let's say we bottom where I say it's going to. We still have a profit taking area at 33 cents. So we were very close to there up in this B wave. But if anything's bought down here, you might want to take some of that off. It might go a little bit higher into 52-cent region before we get some kind of retrace. And that's regardless of whether you're a wave 4 or a wave 2 bottom. And then where it bottoms after that will tell us whether we're in for this heart of a third or whether we had a B wave top, or sorry, top of or bottom of a 4, and then we'll have a wave 5 top, which will be somewhere up in the $8 region, $4, $8 region roughly. So we don't know enough yet in between that argument. I can't engage in that argument before I really, just pick apart the subdivisions in this. But also I'm more relying on how we exit this area and how we retrace after it for me to determine what it is, because I can go both ways. And I was a long term. I mean, Japel and I had an argument. It's not an argument, but a debate on whether Steam was a wave 4 down or a deep wave 2 down. And he certainly had it right in that we topped into 5 and have a deep. I still think it's a funky wave 5, but it definitely confirmed that it is, and we have a wave 2. And we just get those sometimes where it seems like we're correcting shallow for a wave 2, or potentially had one of a 3 in play, and then it proves that we don't have a 1-2-1-2, but we had a wave 4, and now we're in a wave 2. So we just get that sometimes, and it's the cause of it is really the extensions we see in the third wave of most cryptos, especially in 2017, when they don't really follow the ideal topping points for wave 3, but continually extend past it to the point where it's overstretched. We've seen that in Bitcoin, and we've seen that in so many cryptos in 2017. And that kind of gives us a question of whether we've seen our wave 4 or not. And that's our challenge. So if you don't know Pinball, you probably don't know what I'm saying, but that's kind of the background. Cloak next. Wave 4 bottom. I'm looking at this $4 region. There's no sign of a bottom yet. We've got a nice down move today, it looks like. Let's refresh and see if that's really true. I don't even watch this one closely. It's very much like an ether chart right now. gaps on this one short term, so it's hard for me to see, but we may have a leading diagonal like Ether down. I would be planning on seeing it at $4 at the moment. And then I got fibs all over the place on this guy. Let me clean it up a bit. If we bottom there, then we should see a profit taking zone in the 964 to 1594 region in a wave one up. Ideally, you see it not be higher than 964. We see a lot of cryptos though get up to 786 region in the wave one up, one of three. So that's what we're looking at, and then wave two should be about 428. And that's all pertaining to bottoming here. And if we bottom in a different spot, then I got to change all that. XEM, still that wave four, still in a Y wave. I'd be looking at 0.068 right now at this moment until we get another sign of a bottom. And then the ideal zone for wave one up is 56 cents. Sometimes there's lower pinball in action, but that would be an ideal spot for the profit taking zone. This person specifically asked for profit taking spot coming up, and there's lots of things in between, but we don't have any setup to track what's going on in between, and this is only idealized until we see that setup. So that's what we've got to work with now. Siacoin SC, still looking at this 0.03, no change there. Let's refresh to just make sure I'm not missing something. Yeah, so nothing changed there. So it's still pointing to that long-term box. And then if we bottom there, we would get 83 cents potentially. That seems really high, but we have a very shallow two so far. So the other thing we have to watch for in this one, if this is a wave one in red, then we have to watch for a B wave top in this one, which will not be much higher than this X wave. So that's what we'll have to watch out for, because this is a very shallow two at this point in time for that to really be the bottom. ENRG. NRG potential bottoming zone. It's below the ideal 0.02, but it can go down to 0.008. But I don't see a micro. I've got it pinned on there, but I don't see the micro really indicating a bottom. But I also see a very illiquid chart, so it's hard to know. But it takes 0.0 over 0.026 for me to say impulsively, for me to say that a bottom is in, or at least a chance of being in. So I would be looking right now, I would be ready for 0.008, although I don't see the setup to get there. Let me do one thing real quick. Looks like we have a 1-2 here. Let's see where the 200 is. 200 is 0.09, right? We're just below, just ahead of where we ended. So it's possible that it bottomed actually, but I don't see the action indicating that, but some of it may be in a liquid chart. So I'd just be really careful with it. Until over, if you want to be really safe, until over 0.043. When I talk this way, adding in bottoms before they're really in is not a bad strategy, because you get a really low price. You just have to realize that when you don't have bottoming action, which is an impulse over resistance, you just have to realize that that you're going to take some heat potentially. And then if you wait for the impulse and then the retrace, you'll take a higher price, but you'll have a little more surety that that's going to hold, and you'll have a stop underneath your trade that's cleaner. Versus if you bought here, your stop really should be 0.08, honestly, because you have no bottom action and it's potential that we got to go down to those levels. So that's just, I'm just giving you some practical ways of considering trading these situations. If there are more questions on that, I'm happy to answer. That's just those, and I do plenty of knife catching. I think you guys know that. So it's just I'm cautious about it. See, I did BTS. Okay, so we had a series of there's a request series here, and they're all basically downtrends. So IOTX is essentially a downtrend. There's no way for me to count this. I don't have enough of a micro well, I don't have enough data even to say what this is. So if I do my best, see, I can't even really count this, and it looks corrected because it looks like an ABC, and then this is getting rejected. So it should see lower lows. But when you have a chart where you just have a downtrend, it can go anywhere, and I cannot do a count until we get an impulse. So I have to wait for that. So I've got the chart feeding now. I'll probably end up with gaps on it because it's not a chart I look at, and then we can see what kind of impulse we get when the market bottoms. But at this point in time, I can't do that one. RHOC, I think was similar, but let me see. RHOC actually has a big data problem and illiquid, so it gives me low confidence. So you have all of this. What I will say, I can't make any sense of a chart like this. It's possible. Problem is I don't know where I put fibs. So if I put where there's a clean bottom and I put it here and then I put it here, but I'm not sure that bottom, let's say I'll guess, then it may go to 337, but it's all guessing. So I can't say this with any level of confidence, and it's a mess. This is like Verisathium. It's VERI. It sort of wants to be interesting long term, but it has all of this slippage because it's low liquidity, and then it gives me a real problem having any level of confidence. FSN, I think, is a similar downtrend. Yes, so downtrend. This looks corrected, but I can't tell. And until we have an impulse, I can't count this. So it's just, this can go anywhere, and I bet it goes to new lows because that looks corrective. And then BMB is a good one. I've been tracking this bottom, and it sure looks like it wants to go there, which is at the it's at the 713 region. I can't make much sense of this. It's a lot like Ether. It may be that we have 1, 2 in a diagonal, and then we get a bit more. It's also possible this is a B, and we get a C and a higher 4. I really can't tell at this point in time. And this whole thing is obviously a diagonal because we have an A, B, C, this very vertical drop. You can even call it WXY for 3 of the diagonal. So let's see, yeah, it's hard to play with this channel here of this diagonal because it sort of wants to push out of it. Unless we get a WXY bottom here, we just don't have a clear impulse here. So this would be a diagonal up, but it would be my leaning that right now we have a move down to 713 region potentially, but I'm not clear what the exact pathway we have here because this is kind of messy. Maybe even a triangle, but it's not clear to me. NEO, nothing to add really. Still expecting one more low. Yeah, so let's say, I've been calling this pretty well so far, and this is messy. It looks like it might be a leading diagonal as well. And if we get a 1-2, then we'll get a very aggressive move down into the white 2. But in the meantime, and then again, I'm going to say again, there's a chance this one, because if it's a 2, it's a shallow 2. It could be an A wave. And we could get a B wave top and then drop again down into the 240 region. But I just can't guarantee that. Certainly a 2 can bottom at the 382. I've seen plenty of that in life. And if true, then 1670 is the wave 1. So a very shallow 1 begets a very high wave 1 of 3. Sorry, a very shallow 2 begets a very high wave 1 of 3. And that would be at the 1670 ideally, as low as 739, and even as high as 2983. But I just think you have to be very careful with the setup and watch the action for that B wave top in there. And we don't know enough yet. I think this is one that some guys call a 4, but I don't, after having tracked it so long for 2 years, I call this one a 4, and I would be willing to stand on this being a 2, but I could be proven wrong. Let's see, Neo Steam. I think I've covered Steam until I'm blue in the face, but let's do it again. Wave 2. We should have one more low. Still expect 74 region to be hit. And then wave 1 of 3 is 1500. I don't have anything else. This is a chart I almost know by heart because I've watched it so many times. We haven't seen anything new on it. 73 cents, sorry. 73 cents is ideal. The action certainly suggests it's going to hit there. And then wave 1 of, the ideal wave 1 of 2 is 1536. Let me use this chart again to illustrate how important profit taking is going to be in the next region. So I said on the board today that I'm going to take 75 to 90% of my crypto profits home if we get a nice impulsive rally. And you know, I'm disappointed in myself in not taking enough. I took 25% of my portfolio, which was roughly 45x of my 2017 principal, no joke. I took 25% of my portfolio off, but honestly, I wish I took 75% off after seeing not so much how deep this cut has been, but how long it's been, and all of that capital that could have been put into other things got stuck in the crypto market. You know, sure, I've softened it with short-term hedging and shorting and all of that stuff, but not enough. And so personally, I'm going to do this different, and you know, just pay the taxes and get rid of it and take it down. I'm going to leave Steem, a lot of Steem, because it's an income generator with the delegating, but a lot of the other cryptos I'm going to vacate them. And then go to short-term trading of, you know, the service will still be here, and we'll talk about corrective waves. We'll learn how to trade if you want to stick around. But you know, and I should say also that this correction may be very short-term and wicked if it plays out the way it should when it's a wave 2 of 3. So that's the other thing, is we may not be out of it for very long in the next run. I think we got our lengthy correction here in these last eight plus months. But nonetheless, I'm going to take a lot of my profit home when we hit some of these targets, because I don't want to be stuck in a longer correction. And of key fibs, and if you've seen that key fibs work. You know, we've heat seeked them on the way to the bottom, and we topped it a lot of key fibs at the top. You know, and we got, you know, interesting things like the EOS high B wave. I mean, all that, you know, sometimes it's feeling it out and figure out what fibs it's following, but when you get it, you get it. So you know, I'm confident enough to say I'm not missing out on anything, and I can put I'll keep cash in accounts so I can buy, you know, in breakouts, early breakouts. So I'm not too worried about taking profit. It makes a lot of sense. That's let's see, BTS, EOS. I mean, let me go through EOS and ADA. Those are the last other questions, and then I will talk about some of the questions here because they're starting to pop up. And I'll look at the Dash Micro to see if there's any sign of a bottom. I mean, no change here in EOS. Still expect lower. Still have a nice setup that wants to go lower. All of the rally is corrective. We have potential leading diagonal. I posted that today. The 4 is really high, so it's like Ether, and I have questions about it. But if we're in a 2, then we have a very nice setup down to that region. Wave 1 up is showing up in the $10 region. Sorry, that's the minor. That's a very minor wave 1. Sorry, let me zoom out. The 618 is at 2372, which is higher than our B wave. So that would be the key profit taking region once we get going. So get some off at 2372. Since this one's going to have a delegation market as well, I probably won't take much of my EOS off, and I'll be trading RAM and all that. So that's probably a crypto for me that's going to stick around, given the income opportunity in it. And then ADA is still a very, very low wave 2, and it really needs to bottom by 0.046, but we have no sign of a bottom yet. Still takes 12 cents to get any indication of bottom. You can see that we had a nice hit of very close of resistance here. This is one that have gaps on the micro, so it's about as zoomed in as I can get. Yeah, no bottom in. It would be ideal to see something ahead of 0.046, and then below 0.046 we have a problem. Wave 1, if we did bottom already, let's put it down here where it projects. $1.02, which is very near the all-time high, would be an ideal hit for wave 1 of 3. That's a nice one. I mean, it's a really nice one, and then you know, really strong move up into wave 1. And you really, even though we're going deep, it's kind of a very soft correction sideways and lengthy in time. You know, overall, I think this looks very bullish, but it's got a bottom. It's got to put in that impulse. So I like to look at the form and structure and whether the correction is very sideways compared to the thrust upward. And so I see a very good sign. You know, this is a nice bull flag, but it's just very big, and that's just normal in cryptos. So that's where we're at. Okay, so Dash real quick. That was a question. And then I'll just go down questions. If you have questions about one of these charts that I went through, I've got 15 minutes, so this is going to be a push. It may be that I have to answer some things on the board. I'm going to keep the time short. So yeah, I see no sign of a bottom here at all in the micro. I see a very corrective move, and I see a move it's more drifting into that projection into the C, which is a little higher than long-term support. And then again, as I had said in a couple webinars back, Dash really is a candidate for a B wave like Neo because it's very, very, very shallow. It can be forgiven if it really hits that 382 at 75 nicely. It can be forgiven, and perhaps we don't get that B wave. But all in all, it's kind of begging for a B wave after and a deeper wave too. That can be anywhere from $30 down to $11 in a normal sense, in a normal fib pinball work. So I don't see a sign of a bottom, and I also don't see this as a really strong buy for me personally because of the threat of the B wave. So I'll be using any rally out of here to kind of cut the portfolio back. That's my take on it. What is the most probable count for BTC? I understand there are at least three, and any of them can play out. I think the most probable is, like I said, is well, let's get rid of probable for a second. Let's talk practical. I think it's very, very smart given how much short position we have on the books and how much projection we have into the 49 to 51 region that we cut the short out and we do some buying in that zone. Again, I've said when you get a WXY in Bitcoin, I can always eat my words, but it's very fast down and very fast up. So it will be very hard to play in any respect. So what you can, so I'd rather talk practical than probable because I really don't know between those three counts. I do think that white count, there's a problem because white count is actually, it doesn't really work well as a count. Japel noted the problems and I looked into it and they're certainly there. It's not invalid, it's just problematic. But I also don't think that wave four is, wave four in red is very likely when I look at the market. So we do have an issue. And so I kind of want to say a nice waterfall to really get shorts excited, get those short position up higher, and then see them have to bail or the push resistance would be really, really nice. But I really can't say until we have it. And so I'd rather talk practical, which is considering a little bit of buying in the 4,900 Bitcoin region to 51. And then if we really get that gift of that low 3,000s, then I would be aggressive. And I will be personally, with some fear in my heart, buying on leverage down below there, but I would do it small enough to take some heat short term because I really think it would come up really fast. That's just my experience that plays out, and I certainly could eat my words. So you talk of knife catching. If I have a set of coins you're targeting, what do you think of knife catching 1/3 at the point and the rest at 5 up, 3 down? I don't know what 5 up of 3 down, 5 up, 3 down. Oh, no, I do that all the time. I mean, that's actually, if you look at like a lot of my old webinars, the knife catching 1/3 or whatever small position, or I call it the seed position. That's usually what I do. So I wait for divergence. I catch the fifth wave down. I've also noticed that there's often a neck down of resistance, meaning it first shows on the 4-hour chart, then 2-hour, then 1 hour, then all the way down to 1 minute. And when you see that 1 minute, that sequence of divergence down in the 1 minute, that's when I start buying. And so I can catch the very, 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 very bottom, like almost bottom ticket, but I just do it small and carefully, and then certainly adding when you have and really pushing your position once you have a higher level retrace. Then you have a point underneath your trades where you can bail, versus if you're knife catching, you really don't know where it's going to go except for the larger fibs and where it's going to stop. So there's not really a clear stop until you wait for the impulse. So yes, that's definitely generally how I do it and a good strategy. So any other questions? I have to go soon. I have 9 minutes. Any other questions before I hang up? And again, I'll be on the board for probably about an hour before I have to start heading to the city for reception. So let me know. Anything else? Happy to, happy to add to any of the charts I've gone through, any of the questions, any style of trading, any approach. If there's any questions regarding any of those topics, I'm really happy to answer. Okay, I don't see anything. Do answer on the board if you've got a burning question and you're just trying to formulate it. So All right, thanks, guys. Happy what is it, Thursday, and then we'll see you guys for a couple more hours. Talk to you later.